All right, we're going to do a quick sound check. Okay, everyone, computers off. Oh, wait. Okay, Mirta, are you able to hear us? All right, she says yes. I think. Good evening. I'm going to call the City Council for the City of Missoula to order for our Monday evening meeting. It's May 23rd, 2022. We are still having, well, we are hybrid now, so you can be in person or virtual, and I will have our city clerk tell you how to join the meeting virtually. If you're able to do that, Marty.
I certainly can. Hang on, let me show my screen. Share screen. Okay. So if you're watching on TV and you actually want to join our meeting tonight, or maybe you're on our YouTube channel and you want to participate in tonight's meeting and offer public comments, so here's how you do it. So the first thing you might want to do is look up the City of Missoula's website via your favorite search engine and open up our web page. And in the middle of the page, right under this beautiful picture of our lovely city, you're going to see a meetings button. You'll click on that meetings button, and then you're going to get a calendar of meetings. Well, tonight is May 23rd, and here you can see that we have a city council meeting listed on that calendar. And if you click that button, you can either click HTML or PDF after this word agenda here, and that will take you to our agenda. If you click this video button, that means that you can watch on our live stream, but you won't actually be joining the meeting. You have to click into our agenda in order to join the meeting. And then right here on the top of our agenda is a join the meeting button, and that will get you into our Zoom webinar where you can raise your hand and tell us what you think. If you don't have a computer and you want to participate, you can look at our citizen participation guide on that previous screen that I just showed, or you can open up our agenda and look at our cell phone users can dial these numbers 1-253-215-8782. Or if you have a landline, you can dial 1-888-475-4499. And Zoom will prompt you to enter our webinar ID. That's for this meeting, that's 871-1768-5875. And then you'll be allowed into the meeting to hear what's going on. And you can press *9 to raise your hand when President Jones calls for public comment in order to be recognized, and *6 will mute and unmute your telephone. I think that's everything.
Thank you, Marty. And if you want to change the screen to the flag or to the audience, now that we're starting the meeting, if everyone would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. And if you could do roll call for attendance, Marty, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. Anderson.
Present.
Becerra.
Present.
Carlino.
Present.
Contos.
Here.
Hess.
Present.
Jones.
Present.
Jordan.
Present.
Nugent.
Present.
Savage.
Present.
Cheryl.
Present.
Pasika.
Present.
And West.
Present.
Okay, that looks like all 12 council members are present. Mayor Engen is absent.
Thank you. We have minutes from May 9th and May 16th, 2022. Were there any changes to those minutes? Seeing none, those will stand approved. Next, we have public comment on items that are not on the agenda. If anyone wants to give public comment on items not on the agenda, just come up to the microphone, state your full name, first and last name, and we allow about 3 minutes per public comment. Come on up.
Joe Pazdik. Wasn't here last week. Kind of had a screwed up weekend, so I don't have something written ahead of time. So I'm just going to tell you about one of the last times I was down at the ACS and stuff that I saw and how I think it kind of demonstrates some of the problems that I have with how this city is approaching our homeless neighbors. So I was down there with one of the groups that I work with, distributing food. It's one of the basic dignity programs that we have down there, just a hot, decent meal for people. We see two MPD rigs pull up, guys get out and strut into the camp. Okay, we start talking to a couple of the folks and they're kicking out one of the residents that I've known for years. She's a little old lady, white haired, has lots of cats. She loves to collect stuff. Always likes to take more silverware and stuff. Always likes to have plenty of water bottles and that kind of stuff. They're kicking her out because her campsite's too messy. And to do that, they had to call the police department. Again, I couldn't help but think while we were doing this that my federal tax dollars are being wasted by these guys, and we still have to call the cops to harass a little old woman who's sick. She's a recovering addict. She's ill. She's ill, and she can't moderate all of her collections. I don't know if any of you have had the misfortune of holding a little old woman's hand in the middle of the street while she cries because she is worried that what little she owns on this earth could be stripped away from her without her being there. Worried about one of her cats that she wasn't able to get on a leash in the 20 minutes they gave her before they kicked her out. How this city is deciding to handle human beings who are poor, who are sick, who are desperate is unbelievable. It's inhumane. And the fact that really makes me resent it so much is that I'm paying for it out of a fund that was supposed to be for pandemic relief. These people are especially susceptible to pandemic relief. They don't get to just go to the hospital whenever they want. They don't have health insurance in a lot of cases. They have pre-existing conditions, compounding factors that make them especially susceptible. This was an opportunity where the federal government finally gave us some of our money back that we could have used to actually make improvements to our community. And what did we do instead? We leaned in to this perverse idea that the only way that we can be safe is if we put untrained dudes with guns on every street corner. I hope you never have to go through that. It was hard to sit through, and it's been cooking with me for a couple weeks. Again, I understand that we can't void the contract yet, but that's not something that I can hold on to until August. You need to understand that every week that goes by that those people are there, that there are going to be abuses by these people who don't know what they're doing and are making those people's lives harder unnecessarily.
Thank you. Any other public comment on items not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none. Next, we have committee meetings, committee membership appointments, and changes to committee agendas. I think all we need to do is go through committee meetings. Marty.
Okay, we are setting up committee meetings for 2 weeks. And I want to get the schedule on screen here. Let me try that again. All right, here we go. So next week, Monday, City Council will not be meeting. It is Memorial Day. Please have a safe and happy Memorial Day, everybody. And so for committee meetings, we are setting them up for the next 2 weeks tonight. One set of meetings will be on the 25th of May, and the second set is on June 1st. Committee of the Whole will start on the 25th of May, and they'll meet from 9 to 10 in the morning. They'll be talking about voluntary incentives feasibility analysis. That's coming from our housing folks. And we'll also be setting up some procedures for hybrid public board and commission meetings. Similar to the way council is conducting their meetings, we're going to set up some processes and procedures for boards and commissions. Public Works and Mobility Committee will be meeting on this coming Wednesday from 10:15 in the morning to 12:15. They have some appointments to the Bike Ped Board. They have an access agreement and encroachment easement for the Northwestern Energy Substation down at Patty Street. And there's a resolution that declares some of our VHF radios as surplus and authorizing their disposal. And then Street Operations and Maintenance Division will be giving an informational presentation. Climate Conservation and Parks Committee will meet on the 1st of June from 9 o'clock until 12. 9 a.m. till 12, that's a 3-hour meeting. And this meeting is not going to be a hybrid or a virtual meeting. It is a tour. It is a tour of Marshall Mountain, and the tour will actually be from 9:30 until 11:30. The agenda time reflects travel time. And so that will be up on Marshall Mountain. The Land Use and Planning Committee will also meet on the 1st of June, and they will meet from 12:30 in the afternoon until 5:30 p.m. And they will be taking up that Expo Parkway Grant Creek Village rezoning request. And that is our committee schedule for the week.
Thank you. Next is our consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda were approved in city council committees to be placed on the consent agenda to save time at council meetings by voting on them as a package. The city clerk will read the list aloud so citizens watching on MCAT will know what is on the consent agenda. We'll invite community comment on these items before we vote. Ms. Rabine, if you would please read the consent agenda.
All righty, hang on, let me make it bigger so everybody can see, follow along, correct my homework if I get too wily in my reading here. All right, here's tonight's consent agenda, and it has 6 items. The first is to approve accounts payable, which are paying the city's bills in the amount of $908,358.06 for checks that are dated tomorrow, May 24th of 2022. Number 2 is to approve and authorize the mayor to sign a professional services amendment number 2 with Morris and Merrily for the Lincoln Hills Upper and Lower Tank Replacement Project at a cost not to exceed $11,699. That is for a water tank. Number 3 is to set a public hearing for June 6th with final consideration on June 13th of 2022 for a resolution amending the annual appropriations for the city of Missoula, Montana. We're amending the budget, folks. It's the FY22 fiscal year FY22 budget and capital improvement program. Number 4 is to authorize the mayor to sign and execute an agreement with JG Research and Evaluation for $42,000 from city funds for the provision of evaluation services to evaluate, I should say, not to evaluation, Reaching Home Missoula's 10-year plan to end homelessness, funded by the city of Missoula. Number 5 is to reappoint Will Seaburn as a regular member and Emily Schenkel is an alternate member of the Affordable Housing Resident Oversight Committee with terms that begin on June 1st, 2022 and end on May 31st of 2027. And finally, folks, number 6 is to adopt a resolution of the City Council awarding $21,000 in neighborhood improvement grant funds for fiscal year 2022 to certain individuals and directing staff to negotiate contracts for said individuals for the mayor's signature.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda? If so, come up to the podium, please. And I just realized I need to be checking for participants over here. Not seeing any raised hands with people who are attending virtually. Any counselors that want to separate the question on anything? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote on the consent agenda, Marty.
Okay, on that consent agenda, Anderson,
Yes.
Becerra,
Yes.
Carlino,
Yes.
Contos,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Nugent,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Vasika,
Yes.
and West.
Yes.
Would any of you like to change your vote? That is 12 ayes.
Thank you. We have no comments from city staff, city agencies, community forum, neighborhood councils, boards, commissions, or authorities. We do have one special presentation today, or I'm sorry, proclamation, and I will read that. This is regarding Angel from 96.3 The Blaze. Whereas Angel from 96.3 The Blaze is leaving her Missoula broadcast career in radio after over 20 years on the air, and whereas Angel has provided Western Montana entertainment, community service, and respect, and whereas Angel has given a voice to women in radio, local musicians, bands, and rad characters in Missoula, and whereas Angel is going to continue to serve the Missoula community by going into the medical field to help children, and whereas Angel's last day on the air is Tuesday, May 31st, and she will be greatly missed. Now, therefore, I, John Engen, Mayor of the City of Missoula in the state of Montana, hereby recognize the 31st day of May 2022 as Angel Day. Is there anyone in the audience that wanted to speak to this? All right, I'm not seeing anyone, but that's one of the best proclamations I've ever seen, so excellent. Okay, tonight we have we have no final consideration votes tonight, but we do have 4 public hearings, 2 of which we are opening and will keep open until June 6th, and 2 of which we are actually, the last 2, we are voting on them tonight. So we'll start with the first one, 9.1. Funding recommendations for 2022 unified application for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, CDBG, and Home Funds. And we have staff here to present on that, I assume. Let me see about, okay, we have Aubrey Godby here to present, I believe. If you unmute yourself, Aubrey, there you go.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can I be promoted to a panelist? I was not a panelist, but I do know that Karen and Kendra are also on as panelists.
Artie, are you able to promote her to a panelist?
Yes, I am, and yes, I do.
All right,
Okay, thank you.
here you go. Great. Go ahead with whatever presentation you have tonight. And if you can make it bigger so we just see the slide. Yes, lovely.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Can you see that?
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So I'm Kendra. I'm joined by Karen and Aubrey. Emily's out today. And we're going to present on the unified application. So the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, and Home Investment Partnerships Program, or HOME, funds are made available to the City of Missoula on an annual basis from the federal government through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. Home and CDBG allocations differ from year to year, but on average, we get about 800,000 between the two. And then the Affordable Housing Trust Fund is, as you well know, the city has allocated approximately 1 million in funding for this program cycle. And collectively, we're calling these the community development funds. This just shows a timeline of our application period. And then our funds must benefit households of certain incomes. Income limits are often referred to in terms of area median income. We just wanted to provide a quick breakdown. If you line up every household in a region from the one making the least to the one making the most, the household in the middle would be the median household. Therefore, the area median income is the household income for the middle household in a region. Community development funds use area median income to determine eligibility for assistance. And HUD requires that our CDBG and home dollars be spent on those making 80% AMI or less, while our trust fund dollars for some projects can go as high as 120% AMI. In 2022, Missoula's AMI for a family of 4 is approximately $80,000, which means our HUD funds can help families making less than $65,000, while our trust fund dollars can help families making less than $97,000. When we compare that to the affordability threshold from the Missoula Organization of Realtors, which is basically what a median earner can afford to pay for a house with 5% down, we see that the most a family could pay is approximately $340,000, and there were only 279 houses sold in that price range in 2021.
Thanks, Kendra. So here's a brief overview of all of our funds. The trust fund's purpose is to better provide housing at a wide range of entry points and to ensure that all Missoulians can obtain safe and decent homes. And then our funds can be used for a variety of housing-related activities, including new construction, preservation, and consumer housing services. Home can be used for a wide range of activities, including building, buying, and or rehabilitating affordable housing for rent or for home ownership, or providing direct rental assistance to people with low incomes. And then CDBG is a more flexible program than home and supports community development activities to build stronger and more resilient communities. Activities may address needs such as housing rehabilitation, acquisition of real property, homeowner assistance, demolition, infrastructure, and public facility improvements, economic development, and social services. So this year we had 11 applications for funding, which worked out to approximate these funding requests here. Throughout the process, we evaluated each project to determine which funding sources they would best be fit for on the project details and the applicant's preference. Due to a delay in the congressional budget, HUD has not released the 2002 or 2022 CDBG and home allocations this year. However, community development used last year's allocations as a starting point and took into account leftover funds. Once the program income does come up in what we see, we will just change the numbers here and adjust the words as necessary. So with applications in hand, we went off to the scoring committee. First, staff scored based on these blue bullets. We had the committed match fund, completeness of application, preventing displacement, innovation, and then funding request type was based off of grant or loan, and that was just for the trust fund. And then next we took it to the entire scoring committee, which included Council Member Mirtha Becerra, Council Member Kristen Jordan, and then 6 CPDI staff. And then we reviewed these applications and used standardized scoring to evaluate them. And then the scores were averaged, and then the highest scoring projects were selected for funding. And then, as we mentioned throughout the process, the team at CPDI continually assess the projects for their appropriate funding source based on constraints and applicability to the spirit of the trust fund. In the end, the scoring committee is recommending 8 projects for funding overall this year. So for the trust fund, we are recommending NMCDC, the Wolf Street project, to give $340,000 to purchase land under 2 apartment buildings and adjacent house for conversion to a community land trust or a housing co-op. And then the Habitat for Humanity acquisition and placement of modular homes has already been funded previously. And then we're also asking to fund Homeward for $15,000 for a homeownership center program for financial and housing education and counseling programs. And then we will be taking the Rivard Development Scott Street project for $500,950 later at a separate date.
Thanks, Aubrey. As Aubrey mentioned, HUD has yet to release the allocations for federal CDBG and home dollars for our program year 2022. But as you can see here, the annual allocations haven't changed that much in the 11 years in the past. This allows us to more readily estimate our annual allocations, but on the flip side, the amounts we receive aren't adjusted for inflation, so we have to do more with less. If our allocations come in more or less than what we anticipate, the project funding amounts will be increased or decreased according to the scores received in the scoring committee, and more details can be found in the memo attached to this item. You'll probably recognize these projects. They have been recommended for this year's home funds. The Trinity and Bellagio projects have been funded with home dollars in the past, and they have returned this year to ask for additional funding. The home program also allows for the designation of what is called a community housing development organization. A CHODO is a nonprofit organization whose main purpose is to help build capacity to develop affordable housing for the community it serves. CHODOs can ask for and receive up to 5% of our home funds to cover operating expenses. This year, Homeward, a Missoula CHODO since 2003, has asked for $19,000. The North Missoula Community Development Corporation's Burlington project has been recommended to receive CDBG funds. The project will help the cost of a purchase of a single family residence and 2 adjacent lots. The properties will be converted to a community land trust, ensuring permanent affordability. In addition to these projects, Home and CDBG allows for a small percentage of the award to be spent on administration and planning. These amounts will be increased or decreased within the regulations once HUD awards us our allocation. These projects will have lasting positive outcomes for our community with support for more than 400 permanently affordable units and well over 2,000 individuals if you estimate those who will move into those units. That's including those who will be helped immediately through the financial and homeownership education program and the immediate assistance available to the 11 individuals benefiting from our housing programs. And we would like to encourage everyone to reach out with comments on the annual action plan or any of these projects. You can do so on engagemissoula.com or by calling or emailing any one of us. The annual action plan goes into more details on our CDBG home projects and will be submitted to HUD prior to the start of our program year. And those comments will be accepted through June 6th. Now we're open for any questions that you have.
Great, thank you. Appreciate the staff presentation. We'll take public comment first and then see if there's any questions from council. Does anyone here have public comment on this item? I'll check in our attendees. We do. I see Bob Oakes. You need to unmute yourself and you can provide public comment. There you go.
Hi, I'm just here to answer any questions also for the projects involving the NMCDC.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming to the meeting. Okay, seeing no public comment, are there any questions from council? We're just opening the public hearing tonight, so it's not comments, but we'll take questions from council and leave the public hearing open until June 9th. Ms. Vasika.
Thanks. I had two questions. I was curious on the scoring slide. I was wondering what the staff scored bonus meant. And then I also noticed that for a lot of the estimates, it was using estimates from 2021. Are we expecting the cost to be a little bit higher this year because of increasing in construction costs?
Not sure who from staff can answer that,
Yes.
but
As far as the allocations that we receive, it is generally within that same amount that we are expecting as far as funds received from the HUD. And then do you have the bonus questions, Kendra or Aubrey, pulled up?
Yeah, I can answer on that.
Thanks, Aubrey.
Thanks, Kendra. So the staff scored bonuses were based off of preventing displacement, innovation, and then the funding request type. So the funding request type was only for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And these ones were only for staff. And we scored these all before taking them to the scoring committee.
Okay, thank you.
great, thanks. Any other questions from council? Let me check virtually. Okay, I'm seeing no other raised hands. So this public hearing will stay open until June 6th, and then we will take a final vote on it. Thank you, Kendra, Aubrey, and Karen. The next item is item 9.2, which the heading is a substantial amendment to the CDBG and Home Program Year 2021 Action Plan. I believe we've got the same staff presenting on this.
Yes, we are here. Can we start with slide 3? Thanks, Kendra. So Kendra and I would like to present to you a substantial amendment to last year's annual action plan and also present on the home ARP allocation plan. And we'll start with a substantial amendment. We presented to you last year's 6 projects for a community development block grant and home investment partnerships program funds, but we need to amend that action plan. So in program year 2021, Homeward applied for and was approved a $500,000 CDBG grant to help support the Navigation Center, which is part of the larger Trinity apartment project. The Navigation Center will be located at the Mullins site to provide access to supportive services. And before any contract was signed, Homeward notified us that they were able to secure additional funding from the state and therefore no longer needed the city CDBG funds for the Navigation Center. The state has recognized that housing projects throughout the state have been greatly impacted over the last 2 years and carved out a chunk of ARPA funds for housing projects that have seen significant cost increases. That influx of federal dollars into our community through funding such as the American Rescue Plan has created a unique situation, but it's unlikely that that situation will happen again. So just to reiterate, no contract was signed with Homeward and no funds were given. Our policy, however, requires that we bring before you and open a public hearing whenever there is a significant change in funding or projects. So for the substantial amendment, the Navigation Center project will be removed from the 2021 action plan and all funds will be reallocated to future projects. And do you have any questions before we move on to the home ARP?
We do have some questions, so let's go with Ms. Cheryl.
Yeah, thanks. And happy to have that funded another way. I'm just curious, will there be any reduction in any of the services, or are the services planning on staying exactly the same? We're just getting the funding from another source.
I don't know if anyone from Homeward is on this call. My understanding is that the funds that they were needing were found in other avenues. And so that Navigation Center has found additional funding elsewhere.
Great, thank you.
We had a second question. I thought I saw two hands raised. Okay, Ms. Anderson.
Sorry, I didn't know if you were asking Ms. Cheryl if she had a second question. Thank you. I guess my question, this great news that this funding has been allocated elsewhere. So the funding that you showed us for in 9.1, does that reflect the additional dollars now available because the funding for this allocated project was not needed? Or will we be seeing a future proposal of how to reallocate those dollars?
We have another project that is being considered. They are still getting us more information before we can determine that, but those funds may be used for that project.
So may I have to follow up to simplify
Go
those
ahead.
funds? The $500,000 is still available to be allocated yet to future projects.
Yeah, well, those funds have been contingent upon for another project until they are able to get us required further information. So we're still waiting to hear more on that to see if those funds will go towards that project.
Great. Okay. So just to clarify, we're 9.1 and 9.2 are not interconnected. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Ms. West.
I think I had the same question as Ms. Anderson. But to be clear, I don't think I understand yet. So the unified application round that is completely separate from this. So there's $500,000 now that are in limbo, we'll say. And there's not going to be another application period. Yes, that's my question. Is there going to be another application period, or is this remaining funds going to be handled just administratively?
If the additional project is able to get what the information that is needed, they will be funded. If not, it will be available for our next round of funding for the next project year. That's the plan for now.
Okay, I think it was clarified. Any other questions from council regarding this matter? And not seeing anyone from our virtual participants who want to ask questions. This matter will remain open as a public hearing and close on June 6th for a final vote. And we are taking public comment in the meantime up until June 6th on this item. Okay, we have two more public hearings tonight, and both of these will be voted on tonight for final consideration. The first one is 9.3 North Reserve Scott Street Urban Renewal District Boundary Amendment. And I believe Annie Gorski is here to present on this.
Gwen,
Wait, one moment. Karen, did you have something else?
I'm so sorry. There was a second part to our presentation on the art.
Oh, I am so sorry for cutting you off. Okay, Annie, we're going to get right back to you. Go ahead, Karen. We got away from ourselves. I wasn't reading your signals there. Okay, we're going to continue on with the presentation with 9.2.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So the city of Missoula received $1.3 million in Home American Rescue Plan funds to primarily address homelessness and supportive services. And this is a separate allocation from the ARP funds that will be administered through the city. Home ARP is subject to the same regulations as the home program, with a few exceptions, and is in addition to the home funds that we receive each year as a participating jurisdiction. The allocation plan is currently in draft form, and we want to stress that at this time, we do not have a specific project associated with the plan. This is merely the first step in determining specific needs for our community through presenting the plan for public comment. As we move through the process, we will return to council for an amendment that will include a specific project or projects. One of the main stipulations of the Hallmark Funds is that we must primarily be used to help certain qualifying populations. This includes those in situations related to homelessness, fleeing from violence, and veterans and their families. With Hallmark, we can fund rental housing, supportive services, non-congregate shelter, and rental assistance. And the last two types of projects listed here come with a stipulation that operating support and capacity building must be in conjunction with a Hallmark activity. Since these are new funds, our timeline is a bit of a work in progress and will depend part on how much collaboration is needed to find projects. As of today, we've consulted with our local continuum of care. We've asked them to participate in a survey and to help us collect data to demonstrate gaps and needs in our community. We've also engaged the public through a survey. The public hearing is an additional step to solicit public input. Our plan right now is to submit the allocation plan to HUD without a specific project in mind, and then include Hallmark funding as part of the program year 2023 competitive application process. In the meantime, if the eligible project does come forward that we can fund with Hallmark, we can forego that competitive application process.
Okay, so we're going to jump into a brief overview of the gaps and needs analysis. More detail of this stuff that I talk about can be found in our allocation plan.
Excuse me, for the record, this is Kendra Lyson.
Thank you. Most of this data was pulled from existing reports and conversations with our community partners. So we all know the story. There's been a 109% increase in home prices in 11 years. Missoula is short 2,400 units, and we have an incredibly low rental vacancy rate. Missoula's housing market is out of reach for many of us. So we're going to review some of the statistics we found relating it to those who we can help with our home ARP dollars, in other words, our QPs. So the first QP will visit our homeless individuals. And one way to survey homeless individuals is through the HMIS system, or Missoula's comprehensive record of unhoused individuals receiving service from city agencies and local nonprofits. In January 2020, there were 510 individuals seeking services, and a year later, in 2021, there were 666. And some reports suggest that homelessness could increase by 40% in the coming years. Next, we'll turn to students experiencing homelessness. Data from the Missoula County Public Schools shows that the total number of students experiencing houselessness or housing instability has more than doubled since the 2017-2018 school year. The pandemic was cited as the biggest driver of this increase. The University of Montana 2020 Real College Survey reports that 50% of students at UM experienced housing insecurity in 2020, and 23 experienced homelessness. And this is 7% and 9% higher, respectively, than other four-year institutions. So now we're going to move on to our QPs fleeing domestic violence. Missoula's YWCA Pathways, a program that includes shelter and support for survivors of domestic and sexual abuse, served a total of about 1,600 unduplicated individuals, and their crisis line helped an additional 1,400. The YWCA reports that the link between domestic violence and family homelessness is vivid. 70% of homeless families we see are headed by women, and domestic violence is a significant cause of their homelessness. Since opening its doors in spring of 2021, the YWCA Meadowlark has helped families faced with homelessness through their family housing center and providing emergency housing to those who need it. YWCA Missoula anticipated serving more than double the number of families and children annually in their new facility. However, with the ongoing effects of the pandemic disproportionately affecting low-income homeless families, those numbers have been higher than anticipated. Hallmark defines at-risk households in part as individuals or families who have incomes below 30% of area median income. For Missoula, this would be those with a household income of approximately $22,000 or less for a family of four. Additional risk factors for homelessness include paying more than 30% of your income on housing, and this is what you'd call cost burden. This chart shows that nearly 8,000 households earning less than $50,000 a year are cost burdened. In Missoula County, for those earning less than $35,000 a year, 82% of households are cost burdened. Severely cost burdened low-income households are more likely than other renters to sacrifice necessities like healthy food and healthcare to pay the rent and to experience unstable housing situations. While we have a robust set of tools to help those at risk or unsheltered, in particular our QPs, we're consistently seeing a gap as well. While it's hard to quantify precise gaps, we did our best by looking at the number of emergency beds Missoula has versus the numbers of homeless we're seeing. We have approximately 569 emergency beds, but 606 homeless individuals. We can also look at the housing choice voucher wait lists as another indication of gaps. HCV, or housing choice vouchers, provide rental subsidies for families earning very low income. The number of households on the HCV waiting list is another indicator of overall demand for affordable rental housing. Since 2015, the waitlist number has remained consistently in the 1,700 range, with a dip in 2021 indicative of households being unable to utilize the vouchers due to the low supply of units. Another looming gap that isn't often talked about has to do with housing units that have been subsidized by federal dollars. The University of Montana's Affordable Housing in Montana, December 2022 report says that there are about 2,100 units receiving some form of federal subsidy to keep them affordable. When federal dollars are given to help build affordable housing, the units have to remain affordable for a set number of years. Once those years are up, the building or units can be sold at market rate. And of Missoula's housing units receiving subsidies for affordability, 473 or 23% are set to have their subsidies expire in the next 10 years. So we'd like to encourage everyone to reach out with comments on our substantial amendment and our home ARP allocation plan. And you can do so by emailing Karen or I or on Engage Missoula. And we'll accept comments through June 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. So sorry to have cut you off earlier. I missed a beat there. Glad you could finish it. Okay, is there any public comment on this item? And if you're in the attendee, oh, we do have someone. Great. Come on up and just state your full name in 3 minutes.
It'll be real quick. Liam Seymour, Ward 4. I would just say that in the slide on gaps in housing, it does take into account the emergency winter shelter program for 150 beds. That program is only in operation half of the year. So in terms of our gap for 6 months of the year is closer to 250.
Appreciate that. Any other public comment on this item? Any questions from council? No further questions from council? Okay. This item will stay open until June 6th when we will hear it for final consideration. Thanks, Karen, Kendra, and Aubrey. Appreciate your work tonight. Okay, moving on now, to item 9.3, the North Reserve Scott Street Urban Renewal District Boundary Amendment. And we have Annie Gorski from the Missoula Redevelopment Agency here to present on that. Good evening, Annie.
Good evening. Okay, can you see my full screen?
Yes.
Great. Good evening. My name is Annie Gorski, and I'm the Deputy Director of the Missoula Redevelopment Agency. The agenda before you this evening is a proposed amendment to the North Reserve Scott Street Urban Renewal Plan. If approved, the plan amendment will modify the boundary of the Urban Renewal District by adding 3 parcels on Grant Creek Road. This is a map showing the boundary in green of the North Reserve Scott Street Urban Renewal District. The area in pink here, these 3 parcels on Grant Creek Road located at 3721 are the parcels that we are proposing to add to the Urban Renewal District. On the west side of the district is North Reserve Street, to the north I-90, to the south the railroad tracks, and here to the east is Scott Street. Continued investment on the west side of the district, here where we're talking tonight, is needed to generate the property tax needed to support activity on the east side. The east side is where significant urban renewal investments are contributing to nearly 500 new housing units that are planned. Specific parcels that we're recommending, again, are 3721 Grant Creek Road. This is the location of Diversified Plastics. These 3 parcels were annexed into the city in December of 2021. The urban renewal plan gives the city council authority to amend the urban renewal plan from time to time. The Missoula Redevelopment Agency Board recommended this amendment at their meeting last month. And on May 9th, council adopted a resolution of intent to modify the boundary. The urban renewal plan amendment is consistent with several goals in the city's strategic plan as well as the urban renewal plan. Over time, the city council has approved several boundary amendments in this and other urban renewal districts. The most recent boundary amendment was approved for the North Reserve Scott Street Urban Renewal District in 2015 to add the consumer direct property. By adding curb, gutter, boulevard, and sidewalks to Grant Creek Road, and by helping a community business expand, this amendment aligns with community design and livability goals, safety and wellness goals, as well as additional goals in the urban renewal plan, which are shown here. Supporting the inclusion of annexed property into the urban renewal district, which we're doing here, developing infrastructure needed for current and future growth, improving a key transportation corridor, which we anticipate because Public Works will likely require improvements on Grant Creek Road as part of the development. And then lastly, supporting rehabilitation of commercial and industrial properties in the district. This is a schedule including the public notice that was given related to the public hearing tonight. From May 9th to the 22nd, we noticed the public and the taxing jurisdictions of this hearing. That included a mailing to all property owners in the district, mailing to the taxing jurisdictions, as well as 2 advertisements in the newspaper on May 15th and May 22nd. I received 2 phone calls from individuals asking about the action tonight, but there was no formal public comment received. And then if council approves of this amendment and the ordinance tonight, the ordinance could be effective June 22nd. And then following that, we would submit a package to Montana Department of Revenue. The urban renewal district would likely receive its portion of the property taxes from this new property in 2024. And I'll end with the recommended motion tonight and stop sharing my screen. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so again, this item will be voted on tonight. Following our order of sequencing of items, is there any public comment, first of all, on this item? Seeing no public comment, any questions from council? Mr. Carlino?
Yeah, I just saw that there was sidewalks there, and I saw that we're intending to support future business expansion and then related public infrastructure improvements. And I was wondering if we had any other ideas on what the public infrastructure improvements might be.
So I'm happy to answer what I know. We sat in with a meeting with Diversified Plastics and Public Works. I don't know if there's anyone in the meeting tonight from Public Works who can share more detail, but my understanding is, so what Consumer Direct is proposing is expansion to their existing building off of Grant Creek, and then in the future, likely a new building to support their operations. Public Works indicated that frontage improvements on Grant Creek Road would likely be required as part of that, whether tied to a building permit or other approval. There may also be some utility connections that are needed as part of that development. Did I say, I'm sorry, did I say, I meant to say diversified plastics. I'm sorry if that was not clear and I said a different business name. That's the business we're talking about tonight at 3721 Grant Creek Road, diversified plastics.
Great, thank you. Ms. Vasika.
Thank you. I was, even though they weren't formal protests or formal public comment, I was wondering what those 2 phone calls did entail in that conversation.
Yes, so both calls were, one gentleman called because he thought we were proposing a zone change at this location. So I clarified for him what the process was. He owned a business in the area, and when I told him what it was, he didn't have any concerns. The second gentleman, again, was asking to clarify what the action was tonight. And when I explained it to him, he did not have any concerns. So they both received the public notice and that we mailed to property owners in the district, and we're simply asking for clarification on the action tonight, what we were doing.
May I have a follow-up?
Go ahead.
And to my understanding, for my questions, was it last week when we talked about this or the week before? All the property that is being included in this this not really annexation, but kind of annexation into this district, they're all in support and they want to be in this URD. Is that correct?
Yes, diversified plastics asked to be annexed into the city. So they are now in the city, and that occurred in December. And then they also asked, as is the policy in the urban renewal plan, to be added to the district. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Was there another hand up? Any other questions from council? No? All right then. For a motion, since this is in committee of the whole and yet I am presiding over this meeting, I'll go to Vice President Hess for a motion, please.
Thank you. I'd move that on second and final reading, we adopt an ordinance amending the North Reserve Scott Street Urban Renewal Plan to include additional property in the district. I'd like to speak to the motion.
I'm going to follow our sequencing and we're going to go for public comment first and then I'll come back to you. It's going to take a while to change old habits here. Any public comment on this item? Seeing no raised hands, back to you, Mr. Hess, for a comment.
Thanks. I'm in support of the motion, and I just wanted to highlight that when this district was created, I was on council at the time. It was the urban renewal study was bounded by I-90 to the north and the railroad tracks to the south, and a lot of this area was not in the city and is still not in the city, but it was definitely intended that properties, when they were annexed, would be added to the district. So this is consistent with that plan, and I'm supportive.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? Ms. Vasika.
Thanks. I know many of you know I'm not the biggest fan of urban renewal districts, but if they want to be in it, then all right, I'll be in supportive of it tonight.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? Mr. Carlino.
Yeah, just, yeah, it seems to make sense with how this got annexed into the city, but I'm also just concerned that this will mean that some tax increment financing money will just go towards helping a plastic company get bigger. And plastic companies are really harmful to the environment. And I would really, I'm definitely open to see what the public benefits are here, but just very concerned about the business side of things. But I guess that's up to the MRA to decide for the meantime. But I hope one day the council will have to approve where MRA puts money. But for now, I guess I'll support the redrawing.
Any other comments from council? All right, seeing none, we will have a roll call vote.
On the ordinance, adding this property to the North Reserve Scott Street Urban Renewal District. Becerra.
Yes.
Carlino.
Yes.
Contos.
Yes.
Hess.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Nugent.
Yes.
Savage.
Yes.
Cheryl.
Yes.
Vasika.
Yes.
West.
Yes.
Annie Anderson.
Yes.
And would any of you like to change your vote? That is
Thank you. And item 9.3 passes. Thank you, Ms. Gorski. And our final item tonight under public hearings is 9.4, conceptual master plan for current center for recreation and creativity. And I believe we have Donna Gockler, Department Head of Parks and Recreation, here to present on this. And Donna, are there other people to present also?
Yes, I
Okay.
have Mike Sweet. Mike Sweet with me. He's with friends.
Great.
Get this set up.
All righty, go
This is
ahead.
my first hybrid meeting in person.
Been a few years, hasn't it?
It has. All right. Well, let's see here. All right. Donna Gockler, Director of Parks and Recreation. And this is a project that we've been working on for over 22 years. It's fondly known today as the current Center for Recreation and Creativity. Some of you don't know, but I came from North Dakota where community centers were pretty common and became the focal points of communities of all sizes where we'd gather for special events, evening sports and wellness programs, dance, fitness, children's programs, swimming. And one of the greatest curiosities I had when I moved to Missoula is why there wasn't a community center, a true public community center. We have a lot of fitness centers, and we have a wonderful YMCA, Zootown Arts and Community Center, fantastic intellectual community center called the New Public Library. But we don't have a public community center dedicated to year-round, 7-day-a-week recreation for all individuals in our community. So I want to tell you a little bit about it and the partnerships, and then I'll ask Mike Sweet to come up here. And I did share a longer version of this, so I'm going to try and go through it quickly, recognizing time is somewhat limited, but a little bit of a history. This project was identified as one of 3 major projects with the 2000 millennium of ways we could improve our community over the next 100 years. It was also adopted in the 2003 McCormick Park Master Site Plan. There's a drawing on the screen. And then it was noted in our growth policy. Additionally, and more recently, it is noted in the 2020 Climate Ready Missoula Plan, City Missoula Strategic Priorities, and we talk frequently about the need to gather under justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, and especially to get to resources in a public venue. So how do I find out about aging? How do I find out about childcare and all those kinds of things? In 2021, we received approval from City Council to take a deeper dive. And so over the 22 years, we've been looking at partnerships with Missoula International School, Missoula County Public Schools, different private schools, the fairgrounds, and on and on and on, just about every imaginable way of partnering. And every time we go through a public process or we hire a consultant to look at market feasibility, about 5 times over, we've come right back to McCormick Park as the preferred location, especially for Missoula's first community center for a whole bunch of reasons. So some of the benefits, it really is about health, wellness, improving health equity, making sure people have access. There's ample opportunities to do prevention work in our community, and we do that through recreation and engaging the public. Build and sustain physical and mental health. We all recognize during the pandemic how important that access to the outdoors was with friends and family. Well, for a lot of people, the safety of an indoor space that's lit and that has good air quality during long smoky seasons, that I can see during long icy dark season, is super important to that wellness. And keep in mind, people aging well in their homes or people feeling like they belong to Missoula, which is so important to all of us, has to do with meeting other people that you can identify with. It's when we meet each other that we create safer communities. So connecting folks of backgrounds of all types, regardless of demographics, politics, religion, or anything else, and expand upon and complement other facilities. Sustainability and climate resiliency. This has been super, super important. I already mentioned smoky seasons. They keep getting longer. Air quality is a challenge. We have very few public facilities in Missoula that meet air quality standards during a fire season. Very few. One of the floors in the public library is probably our best example. Accessibility for all, regardless of disability, age, or anything else. And then, of course, being a model facility for the way the facility is built, maintained, designed, and maintained. And we've tried to do that as time progresses and technology changes, and we have a better understanding of what is a true sustainable environment. We can build community. Again, welcome and accessible. Multi-generational has been a high priority for the community, regardless of which of the 22 years we've asked that question. I want a place to gather with people of all ages. Synergy of different spaces coming together. So if you think about the energy of our downtown environment, something that makes that work great is there's lots of different opportunities so the whole family can engage. So when I talk to people about, well, imagine, you know, a member of the family's in the pool, another member's in dance, another member is taking a class, and you brought the grandparents along and they're engaged in a dance or whatever it might be. There's a place for folks to come together. So wide variety of activities. And again, helping folks meet each other. Complementing existing services, you know, questions have been asked, well, what about, you know, the YMCA? The YMCA is superstars in providing quasi-public health and fitness facilities for their members. They're also superstars at licensed daycare. And they are in the southern portion of town, so they do provide a community center component for our residents. This community center is very, very different. It's about dance and movement, and we have nowhere near the gymnasium space. And for those of you who don't know, we also lost City Life Gym. So we are literally turning away people from gym use, and that is more than just sports, and it is multi-generational. It also would help us increase our capacity for youth program services. Just to give you an idea, we had 3,600 registrants for summer camp programs. We have more than 2,400 on the waiting list to get in. Part of that is staffing, part of it's transportation, but a lot of that is capacity. Where do you go? What do we do in a storm? What do we do if we're smoky for more than a month? It's hard enough already when we lose August to keep the kids entertained. And then we do increase capacity, and best, you know, a real easy example I can share with you is when we built pickleball courts, there were facilities all over this town that were then putting pickleball lines down on whatever gym floors they had, and the Peak Athletic Center literally building pickleball courts because it creates a market. And that happens a lot in parks and recreation programs, and that programs become self-sustaining or they grow other businesses. And it is, it's happened in multiple different sports and activities over the years. We had a very robust public process. I'm going to touch on some of it here, but we did have steering committees, consultants and professionals. We had technical working group that includes all of our different permitting agencies, people around climate expertise, around providing resources for families who are seeking out whatever resources our community as a whole. We have a ton of nonprofits in this community, and one of the things the nonprofits were most excited about was having an actual resource center where they could meet clients and customers in a community setting while the rest of the family was engaged in recreation. And they could have actual meetings there and distribute their information. We had a number of community open houses. We used Engage Missoula, and then we did some specific and targeted outreach. We would meet with folks from, you know, Missoula Aging Services. We would go to the food bank. We would go to the markets. Some of the youth programs like Fall Family Fest, we're reaching families that they're coming for programs that are relatively, you know, no cost or like $1 to get in. And so we're reaching different families without all of the resources. And so we went to the Western Montana LGBTQ Center. And then we went to all of our traditional places where we always receive public comment, and super helpful. And then how do we hear from the people who don't have time to show up or didn't come that day or that week that we hosted different activities? We also had a week-long, 10-day-long open house inside the Currents lobby where you could drop in and just ask to visit with an employee to tell you more about it. Well, we rely on the Park Recreation and Open Space and Trails Statistical Valid Survey. It does go all the way back to 2018, so it's a little bit limited, but certainly support for a community center at that time as well. We went back out to the public with a conceptual design. 84% of the respondents who viewed that plan believe that the project honors the vision, and 79% said the project also honors the guiding principles, which I'll touch on here in a moment. And questions that came up is, can we make sure we ensure access for all people, especially individuals with disabilities? And that is an area, I think, as parks with each new facility, we've tried to go well beyond the ADA requirements, because anything that feels safe, welcome, inviting, and is easy to access is better for everybody. And then just general concerns about overall access. CPTED is important to everybody, crime prevention through environmental design. They want to know that when they're in a facility, they're going to feel safe in that facility. And so we put a lot of effort into that, both indoor facilities and in our park facilities, especially as we get to build them or renovate them. And then, of course, cost to construct and to operate is always part of the question. But it is not a question we're asking you tonight. I'll talk a little bit more about costs in a little bit here. But what is a conceptual design? Well, it's a graphic representation. So what we're trying to get to is a shared vision for the community, a shared picture, because if we can look at the painting on the wall, we have a pretty good idea what that is. So if I showed you a picture of a pizza and it was pepperoni with cheese and a certain crust, we would all know that it looked the same. If I just said it's going to look like pizza, we would all have, 20 different ideas of what pizza looks like. And so trying to have a shared and common vision. It also cites the building, gives us some preliminary floor plans, and has some three-dimensional representation. So the facility would be next to the existing aquatic facility in McCormick Park, immediately adjacent to the Montana Rail Link Bitterroot Trail corridor, and near the river. It would share the use already of the lobby and locker spaces. We would increase the lobby size. It would have multi-purpose gymnasium facilities. It would have a community ballroom and social space, as well as a multi-forum theater, and all the support facilities and classrooms. So you could have a senior event, you could have a teen focused activities, you could have parent taught kinds of things. We talked about TED Talks and Molly classes, not in all kinds of opportunities. There'd also be an upper floor. One of the things that's most important to our aging community is an indoor track, a place to walk where they feel safe. And quite frankly, that would also work for our striders on bad weather days. So the amazing thing about recreation facilities and programming is different times of day. We meet different demands. And so that's why we can do things like actually have a basketball court and a tennis court on the same facilities. For some reason, people tend to play those sports at different times of the day. So it works. And so everything we do to make things multi-use, adaptable, multi-purpose. This would be more of a three-dimensional with the mountains in the background, looking mostly north, slightly northwest, sort of flying above McCormick softball diamonds and looking at the facility. This would be the entrance. So very close to the current entrance, just kind of where you would enter the basketball court that's behind the facility right now, more in that area. So this might be what it looks like when you enter the facility. We didn't go into a lot of detail like art and, different languages for welcome and all those things, but it gives you an idea of an open air, welcoming feel. The lobby and resource spaces and some of the teen and senior or aging adult facilities would be open all of the time for use. And then this would be an example of a dance activity in that ballroom space that could be taking place, and you can see out across McCormick Park. So great connection with the indoors and the outdoors. When we designed Currents, most cities, when they design a Currents kind of aquatics facility or a splash, people say, oh, we want it to look like the tropics or someplace like that, but not in Missoula. Everybody wanted to look like Missoula. So they wanted timber and, argillite stone and lots of open windows and almost this immediate indoor outdoor. It can be on either side of the wall and feel equally welcome. So that was pretty cool. Theater space, this is neat. Could you imagine there could be a performance outside looking in? There could be guests outdoors. And looking back at the performance, this would be about for 200 folks. And it does not at all like the MCT or UM. So we did a lot of work with all of the different similar type facilities to make sure that it fits a niche that is not being met in the community. Again, the gym space, multi-use, volleyball, pickleball, tennis, futsal or soccer, you name the sport, we could probably play it in there. This would be looking from the river trail. And so the river's on your right, if you will, and the access from that side of the building. One of the great things about McCormick Park is we run a lot of the children's camps out of there. It's where we deploy from. And so having indoor facilities where kids can go in a storm or where we can provide more services, especially some kids can't be out all day. They might have sensitivity, skin sensitivity and all of that. And so we try and create a warm, welcoming place for everybody. Additional information. Yes, we did look at a pro forma or a business plan. It's something that Parks and Recreation regularly does when we're looking at community recreation facilities that would come with fee charges. We also looked at cost of construction, and we did escalate them 30% just for the change in cost over the last couple of years. Those are big numbers. We do not think that this is the right time to build a facility like this. We do think it's the right time to adopt a schematic conceptual master plan so we can continue work. The way we did cost recovery was based largely on public input. So if we would go to a cost recovery of 80%, and if you think about government services, that's a pretty good cost recovery. For every dollar in tax you pay, you get 80 cents back. We looked at that, and we looked at 50% or less, and we landed in a range that's kind of halfway between Fort Missoula Regional Park recovery and halfway between existing aquatics facilities. And again, this is a snapshot in time. At this time, I would not feel at all prepared to tell you what the fee should be or what the exact cost recovery, but we felt it was important to take a look at that. There are comparable community centers across Montana, and more are being built. Again, same reasons we are. We have a growing population. We have a growing aging population, and we have climate challenges that we're trying to address. So the working group that worked with us throughout the process, there were about 20 members, and they worked really hard for about 8 months, helping with public process, listening, working with consultants, made up of citizens. Feel that the design does meet the guiding principles, which reflect the needs and values of community Missoula residents. So this is for and about residents. It's not about drawing tourism or shows. That's not the point. It's for the people who live here. That it works well with the natural and built environment. Clean air is an absolute must. Sustainable practices are another absolute. And building a resilient and inclusive Missoula. It should host a wide variety of programs and services, transform how the needs of Missoula residents are met, including all populations and especially those who are sometimes experiencing income challenges. We want to make sure it's a place to celebrate, that we can facilitate recreation, creativity, renewal, and respite. Respite has come up a lot for families during the last 3 years, just having time to relax, to talk to adults, but have my kids nearby. Childcare has become a real issue for many in our community. And then the working group advanced the goals onto Park Board in February. The Missoula Parks and Recreation did adopt the working group's recommendations and directed staff to bring this forward to City Council. So tonight, what we're asking you is to consider, please, a motion to adopt the conceptual plan for the current Center for Recreation and Creativity. And I want to be really clear about what we're asking. Adopting the plan allows our friends, groups and foundation to continue to do their work in working. This is actually a time to work with philanthropy. It is a time to build coalitions. It also provides us what we call in the industry shovel-ready projects, should there be funding available. And for me, this is very similar to Fort Missoula Regional Park. There comes a time when the economy is right and people are ready, and you will know as council members. So we're not asking you tonight to put any funds into it. Just give our community permission to continue working on this conceptual plan with a shared vision. And so just wanted to be really clear. We're not ignoring those things. We're acknowledging them. We're not asking you for any funds. And with that, I would like to invite Mike Sweet up, and then I'm going to guess there's a few other folks that are pretty excited to talk to you about the 22 years they've spent working on this project. And I'll be here to answer questions and bring up any of the slides.
Great, thanks. Come on up, Mike, and thank you, Donna, and it's lovely to see you in person.
So I won't be as polished as Donna is in public presentation. She's much more practiced than I. So thank you, Council, and thank you, Donna.
And if you just state your name for the record.
Oh, yeah,
Thanks.
I will get there. Yeah, yeah. It's so strange to see you up there and see you here too. It's just, yeah. My name is Mike Sweet. I'm here tonight to represent a citizens group called Friends of the CCRC. While the name may not reflect this, participants in the group have been leaders in facilitating the community conversation around the concept of a gathering space. Some of us have been doing this for decades. And my role here tonight is to represent that legacy and humbly speak on their behalf and on behalf of the hundreds of conversations we've had within the community of Missoula, even prior to the Celebrate 2000 effort. I would be remiss if I didn't also recognize the contribution you all make on behalf of the community as well. While we've had prior concept plans, as Donna alluded to, this plan I feel is unique in two ways. One, first, the amount of community outreach well exceeds that which has occurred in the past. That outreach not only shaped the design, it shaped or framed the guiding principles. Secondly, while this design captures all the components of the previous efforts, it more completely represents the diversity of interest in the community and reflects how our community has grown and changed. While I know we're here tonight to consider the adoption of a plan for a building, it's important to be reminded of what that facility provides for Missoula. In the 2003 master plan for a community center in McCormick Park, there's a quote from former Mayor Mike Cadiz. Mayor Cadiz states that, and I'll quote, "One of the reasons we have things like Missoula's Children's Theater and the Carousel are because we know each other pretty well. We've got places like those where we can get to know each other across all ages and across all income groups. As we become a bigger and bigger community, that becomes harder to do." So this conversation has gone on for a while. The need has not changed. The CCRC is Missoula's door into the community. That's how I view it. It not only welcomes those who call Missoula home, it welcomes those who are new to Missoula, invites them to get to know their neighbors. I've been thinking, in fact, the past week that I might like to rename the facility to be called the Center for Neighbors Without Borders. Consider that this box filled with rooms is not the end of a conversation, but the beginning. It is a footprint for the future of Missoula. It It lays a foundation for us to discover or rediscover who we are as Missoulians. It is a foundation for equity. It is a foundation for empathy. Provides us the opportunity to create a socially, mentally, physically healthier Missoula that is hopeful for the future and ready to take on its challenges. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you so much, both to Mike and Donna. I believe we've got people in the audience who wanted to comment on this, so we're going to put that under the category of public comment. And I've got Amy Ragsdale, your hand is raised. So if you want to state your name for the record and typically do about 3 minutes. Go ahead, Ms. Ragsdale.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm traveling. It's about 1 a.m. my time, and I'm in a strange public space. So let me know if you're having trouble. Yeah, so my name is Amy Ragsdale, and I'm here tonight because I too, like Mike, have been one of the friends of the CCRC, or CIRC as I like to call it, working alongside Donna and her great crew now for almost 10 years in my case. And I came into this because I'm a dancer and a dance professor. I taught in the dance program and ran that program for 20 years at the university. And I also started a couple of dance companies, the first one under the auspices of the university, and then the second one as an independent company. And so just speaking to Donna's mention in her presentation about our efforts to make sure that we're fulfilling a niche, let me tell you what we are. Because I'm very familiar with how painfully challenging it was as a local dance professional with a company looking for a well-equipped space to perform and present our work in, how difficult it was to find that in Missoula, a space that was available in terms of dates, that was affordable so that I could actually rent it for more than 1 weekend a year, which would allow me then to, build audience. And, Missoula is a word of mouth kind of a place. Those things were not available. That trio, well-equipped, available, and affordable. And I think that I have now watched for the 40 years that I've lived in Missoula, a steady talent drain from this town of performing artists. And I think one piece of the puzzle of how we keep artists here with us who want to stay is to be able to provide them a well-equipped, affordable space. So this is really about a space for local artists and performers, theater, dance, music, storytelling, filmmaking, all of those people. So that's the niche. And so we are super excited about the prospect of a place like this, and that it would be city run, and that would give it a kind of longevity over generations that we haven't been able to see in the past. The other thing that I've come to fall in love with this project in so many other ways, even though that's how I got into it. And one has come to feel really urgent to me. And I know I've met with some of you and we've talked about this, but for the record, my feeling is that as we're all very aware, we have a lot of divisiveness in our country now, and we're seeing that same kind of thing in our own community. And while certainly there can be ideological divisiveness, as our community grows as fast as it is, there's also a lot of increasing economic divisiveness. And I think it's, I find that I hang out with people who are like me, who have my education, my interests, maybe my politics. I think that's pretty normal. We call it pods these days. We hang with our pods. But I think that we need to be really proactive now about figuring out how we can provide opportunities for people to come together and not jump to the kinds of labels that I think, at least I find myself jumping to. And I think we need to provide those spaces where people can be engaged together in stimulating, activities. And as a dancer, I think there's no better way to do this than the monthly contra dance, or that beginning pickleball workshop, or that, being together in a parent taught stretch class. or even just swimming side by side in the pool or attending a music jam side by side. And these are the ways I think that we could genuinely be bringing all members of our community together. And that's the key phrase, is how do we make it possible that all feel welcome, all can afford it, and we have a chance to meet our neighbors, as Mike was saying. Often we don't even meet our neighbors. So for me, this has come to feel quite urgent as a proactive thing that this community can do to keep us all healthy and together. Thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, next for public comment, I have Amy Sillenberg. Amy, you can unmute yourself. There you go.
Great. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you, council members, and thank you, Donna and Mike and Amy Ragsdale. I just want to speak really quickly here. I know most of you folks, as you guys probably know, I'm the executive director at Climate Smart Missoula. I have not been working on this for 10 years, just to be clear. I'm really impressed at the fortitude of Donna, Mike, and company. But I have long been involved in climate mitigation and adaptation efforts, working closely with the city. And I think you all know, Climate Smart Missoula, and I worked with the city and the county to develop and pass Climate Ready Missoula, which Donna referenced. And it passed by council as an amendment to the growth policy. We've been busy implementing it the last 2 years. So I, of course, want to speak about our experiences these last very many years and many to come about our hotter and smokier summers. The more we learn about the health dangers of breathing wildfire smoke, the more we understand we really need clean indoor air and clean indoor air for all. And extreme heat can and will be a really significant health issue. So a center like this is really a foundation for equity, as Mike just said, and to keep us healthy. I'm excited to support this. And just to elaborate on what Donna mentioned, it was in the Climate Ready Plan, and it's so specific. One of the strategies is to find, develop, and promote indoor recreation, exercise, and creative activity spaces that are available to individuals and recreational programs that are accessible to all income levels. So it's just, it's great that this particular proposal and this center really speaks so clearly to one of the strategies in our collaborative Climate Ready Missoula plan. So I did participate in the sustainability technical group, and I think there's some really great suggestions to the conceptual design. I look forward to seeing where this can go and as we have further conversations, but I really support moving this forward. And I know Climate Smart Missoula and others in the climate community look forward to, working in further engagement on the design should funding for this facility be available in the future. And I really do, agree with the things that were offered by both Donna and Mike, and especially Amy there about bringing people together. It's just super important. So thank you. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Amy. Okay, next we have Travis Hoffman. You can unmute yourself. There you go. Oh, you're muted again, Travis. There you go.
Thank you, council members. Travis Hoffman. I live in Ward 6. Also the advocacy coordinator at a local nonprofit here called Summit Independent Living. At Summit, for those of you who don't know who we are, we provide services for people with all types of disabilities. And those services range from individual services, benefits assistance, accessing resources, individual advocacy, all the way up to providing or helping people with recreational opportunities or access recreational opportunities and systems advocacy. We have also been involved for several years in the development of this concept, as we have with so many of other Missoula's long-term kind of conceptual plans with transportation, parks, etc. And I think this community center concept can be a model not only for Missoula, but for Montana and really the nation in how to go about from the start designing in inclusiveness and accessibility for people of all abilities. it's already been mentioned a couple of times, but recreation opportunities for people with disabilities are kind of few and far between. We can go outside in the summer months, but that kind of gets shut down when the snow flies and we can't get around in a wheelchair or a walker or a cane, what have you. So, and that's not to mention what others have brought up with people who have respiratory sensitivities when it comes to fire season, and some of the bad fire seasons we've had over the past 20 years makes it virtually impossible for people to get out and exercise, let alone socialize. So we are in full support, and we hope you are in full support of this conceptual design, and we look forward to continue working with you all as well as Donna and Parks to evolve this even further and make it something that all Missoulians can be proud of.
Thank you for your comments. Last, we have Lisa Shepherd. Lisa, if you can unmute yourself. There you go. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Lisa Shepherd, CEO of Missoula Aging Services, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of the CCRC.
Lisa, you're a little bit muted. Maybe you could speak a
Okay.
little bit louder.
Let me see if I can get closer. Can you hear me now?
It's a little bit better.
A little bit? I'm not sure
Yeah.
what else to do, so I'm gonna try.
That's good. That's good.
Okay.
Just speak loud. All right.
Okay. So I haven't been involved in this planning process because I'm new, but I understand that my predecessor, Susan Kohler, was very involved. So I'm happy to speak in support. I appreciate Donna highlighting all of the ways the conceptual design is going to benefit older adults. So I'm going to try to be brief. She did a great job. I'd like to point out, as others did, how important it is to have that safe, accessible, indoor space for older adults, particularly in the winter, slips, trips, falls, people who have mobility issues, very difficult for them to get out and get about. And also, as others have said, during the summer months when it's fire season, having that place to go inside, since so many older adults have respiratory conditions that make it really hard for them to be outside. The other thing that I wanted to point out is having the ability to access all of the wide range of tools and resources that can help older adults increase their independence and their self-confidence and their knowledge and their skills. That's a critical feature as well. And finally, I wanted to talk about that multi-generational piece. So we know, this is really the main point I want to make, is that when we have multi-generational, intergenerational opportunities, it really helps to dispel stereotypes and reduce ageism, and that's all across the age spectrum. It also improves physical and mental health for everyone involved. For older adults, it decreases their social isolation. But for younger people, when they can develop a positive view of aging by interacting with older adults, that is a very powerful predictor for their own lifelong health and well-being as they age. And that's all I have. Thanks again for letting me provide comment. I hope you could hear it.
Yeah, we were able to hear you. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, any other public comment on this item? Why don't you come on up? Thank you. And just state your name and about 3 minutes or more.
Good evening. My name is Janet Sims, and my address is 910 Ronald Avenue in Ward 3. I moved to Missoula in 2010 so that I could be an active grandparent to my two granddaughters, now aged 11 and 13. Just for the record, I'll be 80 this year and hope to be able to live here for the rest of my life. I was born in the UK and have lived in Southern Africa and different parts of the US, but somehow Missoula feels more like home to me than anywhere else. I'm speaking tonight to ask that you adopt the conceptual master plan for the current Center for Recreation and Creativity. I love that this city and its surrounding area makes it possible for aging adults like myself to remain so active. I've been able to do many hours of yoga, African dancing, attend adult education classes, volunteer at the Montana Native Plant Society, Botanic Garden at the UM, and various other things, all within a short bike ride or walk from my house. In my spare time, I walk my dogs and hike on the trails close to the city. I'm pretty hardy and love experiencing the weather year round, but it's less easy to stay as active in the winter months. And in many years, the smoke-filled air makes it difficult to stay active outdoors in the summer months also. I look forward to being able to stay active in the clean air and climate-controlled space that is planned for the new center. The design of the current Center for Recreation and Creativity will provide space for many of the activities my whole family enjoy on a year-round basis. I can imagine days when all 3 generations of my family will be able to attend the community center together as we engage in separate activities under the same roof, whether it be playing basketball, taking a dance or yoga class, using the walking track, or attending a community meeting. My granddaughters are very familiar with the existing current center, having used the pool and the outdoor spaces there since they were wee ones. The expanded spaces in the new center for performances and community celebrations means that there will be many occasions when we can all attend together. I've been very fortunate since moving to Missoula to find a nurturing and friendly community, partly by pursuing the interests that I arrived here with, but I've known a few aging adults like myself who've struggled to find connections, and I believe that having this new community center will allow people from a diversity of backgrounds to make connections and find their place in Missoula. There are gyms and other facilities spread around the city that require membership, but these may not be affordable for everyone, nor easily accessible. And this new facility will provide amenities that are either free of charge or very affordable for our diverse population. The center's location close to the bus line and walking, biking trails is yet another benefit as we strive to reduce our carbon footprint. In conclusion, I feel a strong responsibility to leave this world as healthy as possible an environment for all of our grandchildren and their children. It makes me proud to think that this city that I've grown to love so much is planning to build a new community center using sustainable design in the heart of Missoula so that it can be accessible to people from all parts of our community. Please adopt the conceptual design for the current Center for Recreation and Creativity. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Sims. Okay, any other public comment on this item? Come on up.
My name is Maggie Bornstein for the record, and I have to leave to pick up euros because I've had a long night after this, but I just wanted to say.
If you could just speak up a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't plan to comment on this, but have been very inspired by other commenters. I'm a person who spends 5 days a week with senior citizens, and I think that while this will be a benefit to so many people, my life personally has just been so enriched by having a wide diversity of folks in my little circle and in my community. And so I just see this as such a wonderful project, and I hope that you adopt this plan.
Great, thank you. Okay, any other public comment on this item? Seeing none, are there questions from council for Donna or Mike? Ms. Anderson.
Thanks. My question is for Donna. Thanks for taking the time to walk us through all of this. And you spoke about this in your presentation, but I want to give you an opportunity to be very clear because I can see the headline now from those who are not paying attention that Missoula City Council is adopting a plan to build a $44 million, community center. And I realize that is not what we're doing, but I really want you to kind of very crystal clear lay out what exactly it is that you're asking for us to do tonight, why you're bringing it to us, and then what are the next steps.
Sure. Thank you. So when we ask you to adopt a conceptual master plan, it gives us as a department and the friends and community members a vision of what could be. What will it look like? I liken it to anything else, a business plan to advance a business, designing a trail system or a road system or a utility system so it connects and it functions and it works after it's been constructed. So we're asking you to adopt the conceptual master plan to create a vision. It's site-based. It's not unlike adopting the downtown master plan or the downtown North Riverside Parks and Trails plan. It's a vision. We recognize that today's economy is not the time to ask for funds. But please keep in mind, while we are not asking for funds, we are not asking for construction or operational funds, that there is value to having a vision, and there is opportunity for philanthropy. I think a lot of us were probably surprised over the last few years at some of the gifts our community has received over time, like the old library block, for example, or one of the trusts dedicated to open space, and some of the facilities on campus. So it goes on and on. There is value to having a shared vision. We're not asking you for funding, and I don't have a timeline on which we would come and ask you for funding.
Is that satisfactory?
Yes, I wanted to kind of clearly lay it out. So
All right.
Thank you for doing that.
I don't think Donna could say it more. Ms. Vasika.
Thanks. So I see that there are some architectural firms that are doing the design process, and I am assuming that they're not doing that for free. So although we're not voting for any costs right now, I'm assuming that there are costs associated with adopting this conceptual design. Is that correct or incorrect?
So those costs of our, so there was a contract for professional services with MMW. Those are all paid. They were paid through use of impact fees based on population growth of the community over since the inception of the impact fees. All paid, all done, prior budget.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions from council? All right, then I would need a motion from our Climate Conservation and Parks Chair.
Thanks. I move that we adopt the conceptual master plan for the current Center for Recreation and Creativity, and I would like to speak to it when we've taken public comments, I guess. May I speak to it?
Let me see if there's any further comment now that we've got a motion on the floor. I'm not seeing any raised hands, so go ahead, Ms. Cheryl.
Great. First, I want to thank all the volunteers that have worked on this tirelessly for decades. I say this a lot, but I'm continually amazed at the engagement by our citizens and how it starts. I don't know where some of these ideas start sometime, maybe in someone's garage, and they come to fruition because of people like you that are willing to put their time and their energy into that. So I just want to, I want that recognized, that we are really lucky to live in a community that has people that are willing to do this. I think it's important that we adopt this plan because, you don't go, I've done lots of fundraising in my life. You don't go to get grants. You don't go to big philanthropic organizations and say, I've got this idea, that I came up with in my garage, unless you have a plan to back it. That's how you get funding. So I think it's important for that. I think it's important for this, just for the vision to move forward after so many years. And I just have some things I want to kind of point out that I really love about it. I think it was pretty well covered in all of the presentations, and most of us have seen this presentation more than once, still enjoy it. But I think it was a really thoughtful design for all the different demographics of our community. So I love that. It's a sustainable design, which is really important for us. And it's funny, as I was listening to the presentation tonight, it hit me, if I think back to the last week I've had of meetings, that it crosses over with so many of those, whether we were at the, a few of us were at the Missoula Economic Partnership meeting last week. We were talking about how daycare, and I know this isn't going to be a daycare, but the bottom line is many families use the Parks and Recs programs in the summer as daycare. So that is, a model that needs to change in our state, but that's a different topic. I was in a meeting this morning with Amy and actually Donna as well, talking about an emergency heat, an emergent plan for the summer, an emergency smoke plan for the summer. And that requires indoor facilities with clean air and with air conditioning. So I think that's really important. We've seen some major heat events around the country. And while we While we work on climate change mitigation, we also have to accept that we are at a point in our history, a very sad point, that we need to be really focused on adaptation as well. And I think this is a big part of that. The other meeting that I reflected on was Missoula Aging Services had come in, as well as the Missoula Economic Partnership meeting, talking about the aging population of Montana and Missoula, which is higher than the average other states around the country. So I think all those things are really important, and I could kind of go on and on, but I think that it is time, after 2 decades, after the work that this organization has done, the need in our community, that we adopt this conceptual plan. I also want to say that I appreciate the Friends Group recognizing that right now, in a very difficult time where we have lots of competing priorities, that it's not time that we come for funding yet, but I hope at some point that we are able to do that for our community. And I hope for everyone that that's really soon. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from council? Ms. Vasika.
Thanks. And I wanted to thank Donna so much for that wonderful presentation. All of my questions were definitely answered during it. Every time I come up with a new one, you hit on that subject right away. So I really appreciate that. I'm really torn on this one. I don't like the competition that the city is going to put in place with the Y. And with Marshall Mountain coming up, and we just had that public library, everything just is, we're putting so much burden on the property tax, on homeowners for the property tax dollars. And I just feel like we're spending too much money. And I know that this is not, you're not asking for funds at the moment, but I feel like if me voting yes for this conceptual master plan is me saying that I want to move forward with this plan. And I don't think that financially we're ready for this. So at this time, I am not going to be supporting this, but I used to be super against it. And now I'm getting more in the middle. So I just wanted everyone to know my train of thoughts on this, but unfortunately I will not be supporting this tonight. But I am willing to hear more about it in the future.
Thank you. We have Ms. Savage and then Ms. Becerra.
Thank you. I will be supporting this tonight. And in particular, I want to thank the Friends Group for all their dedicated work over the years, and also for staff for such a thorough presentation. And particularly, I just wanted to call out the sort of the deep work that I feel like this group and staff did on engaging the community, and over many, many years, and lots of different folks that you were able to bring to the table. Some of those people are not traditionally consulted, and I really have appreciated knowing that there was a lot of deep engagement in this process. So I will be voting for it tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Becerra.
Thank you. Like Donna, I too grew up in a community with a community center, and I have vivid memories of trying to find my grandma, and I knew that if I couldn't find her at home, she would be at the community center with her friends in a knitting group. It was a place where dads and uncles would go and play chess. Us kids could go and hold a dance party. At times it was a makeshift church and an impromptu polling place. So community centers have a really important role in the community, one that I truly support. But for tonight, I really think it's important for us to support this conceptual master plan, because it is so important for the fundraising that needs to happen. No one who has the means to support a center or an endeavor like this one is going to do it without some sort of master plan. We do this for the city. We do this all the time. It's a more concrete way for anyone who wants to support it to have an idea what it will do in the community. So just for that reason, I'm fully supportive. I think the benefits, as Donna and everyone else has mentioned, are many for that community. And thank you for all your work on this.
Great, thank you. Ms. Anderson.
Thanks so much. I want to echo a lot of what my fellow council members said. I also have spent a lot of time fundraising and know that you need to have something to put forward. And I think that what Donna has highlighted, as well as the comments from other folks, is that there is an identified need in our community, and having this master plan helps them sort of figure out the way to fund it. And they don't know how that's going to end up. And, things have changed, and there's opportunities that we might be missing, and that there is a need in our community, not only from the climate aspect, but the opportunities to bring people together. I loved the gentleman who said he wants to call it, I think it's the community center without, or something like it was. I loved that, because I think that we do need to figure out ways to address and give opportunities for people to come together and learn and build relationships. And you never know what the next thing that could spark by having that random run in with somebody at the community center that could be the next thing that really makes people's lives better here in Missoula. And I think that that is what the whole purpose of a community center is, to bring opportunities for people to come together and think about their community. And I realize and agree that right now doesn't seem the right time for a big bond initiative or something like that, but having the ability for the Friends group, for the Parks Department to go around and see what opportunities are available seems like short-sighted for us not to support that. And who knows what opportunities we may be missing, and for them to give them a roadmap to go forth and figure out how to fund this seems like a waste not to support it. So I will be supporting it tonight and look forward to building more and more community excitement around this and opportunities to fund this, and hopefully see it into fruition. So thanks.
Thank you, Ms. West.
So I'm also going to support this. I think that Missoula has limited capacity right now for a lot of the services that this facility could provide. I used to be a member at the YMCA, but we only had one car for most of the time that we lived here. And I only biked across town a handful of times with two kids in the bike trailer before I decided it was just not the best way to use my time to get there. And it wasn't the safest way either, because Russell Street is challenging with a bike trailer. And I also think that we need spaces that are unique from what exists today. I have a daughter who performs with the middle school band. She's in jazz band and the regular band and the all city band. And they don't have a performance space that is really adequate for them, that isn't also super expensive. And so we're regularly seeing kids who have put in years of work playing in the orchestra or the band or the choir perform in gyms. And that is not comfortable for people sitting on bleachers, or really does their work justice. So, and there's things like community dances, just all sorts of things we could have in this space that bring people together. And because of that, I think it's really important to have a unified vision that, really we're just validating what the community already said. And I think that's the least we can do, really, and make sure that we have what we need to carry this forward and fundraise. There's going to be a lot of fundraising to make this happen.
Thank you. And Mr. Nugent.
Thank you, Madam President. And I appreciate all the comments from my colleagues. I will be voting to support the adoption of the master plan. Missoula has a seemingly infinite ability to dream big and often finds ways to make that happen. And I think that's an impressive trait for our community. I do think, and I appreciate Ms. Anderson for asking Ms. Cochler to clarify what exactly it is we're doing tonight, because I think it's important for the community to understand how these processes work. That all being said, I tend to agree that if we adopt this master plan, that the community is going to find a way to make this happen at some point. And if that's the case, I think we do need to acknowledge that we're already pressured on the way we fund parks. We had a public hearing a couple of months ago that talked about user fees and the maybe the gap for in some people's mind on what we're already doing in parks already. We're looking at Marshall Mountain, and then potential gaps in what this will generate in user fees versus what it will cost annually. And I think that that's part of a growing community. I think those are realities. I'm not saying that's a reason not to do it, but I do think that by voting for this tonight, we as the council probably need to acknowledge that we're going to need to evaluate how we fund parks moving forward, because these things do cost money. And I don't think that there's capacity to go back and raise user fees anymore, nor do I think that that would be the goal of anybody involved in parks at all. So I think that that's just something we need to put in the back of our minds, because Mike's an old neighbor of mine. I enjoyed meeting with him and others on the Friends group, and I believe that Missoula will find a way to make this happen. So I just think that as my colleague Ms. Vasika said, we probably need to acknowledge what it's going to cost. So.
Thank you, Mr. Hess.
Thanks. A lot of great comments, so I'll try not to be duplicative. I'm really supportive of this, and I want to thank Donna and Mike and the Friends group and all of the staff for their really hard work on this. And this, I guess, is like so many other things in our community that a group of dedicated individuals get together and establish a vision, and sometime later we have an amazing product in our community, and you can see it all over our community. It's why it's part of why our community is such a vibrant, wonderful place to live. So thank you for all of your work over the years on this. I also, like Donna, grew up or was born in North Dakota and lived in a community that at that time didn't have a community center. My family, among others, were involved in an effort to establish one there, and some decades later, they've built that and they've opened it, and it's largely funded through philanthropy. And the missing link there is a local option sales tax, which is a tool that we don't have here in the state of Montana. And I know we bump up against all of these funding constraints on so many of our initiatives, and I think we have a real dysfunctional tax system that needs to be reformed in order to really be able to provide for our community needs in a meaningful way. So I'm for all the reasons others have stated, I'm really supportive of this project and happy to vote for it. The action tonight, as others have pointed out, is limited, but the action to build this facility when the time comes in years down the road will be built on a foundation of all the action up until now, and as well as the adoption of the plans tonight. So it's an important action, even if it's a preliminary one.
Seeing no other public comment, I'll just add a few short words. I agree with Jordan and other counselors who referenced this. I think this project begs the question that we need tax reform desperately in Montana. We have a very, very broken taxation system, and we need tax reform, and we need to figure out different dollars from which to pull different pockets from which to pull dollars. And I would love to be in a situation where we did not have to look to philanthropy for the majority of funding for this item. But that's another conversation for another day. In the meantime, we're looking at a great conceptual plan, and I know how hard Donna and Mike Sweet and all of these people have worked on this for years and years and years. And when I just take a look at what's going on in the world today, Missoula is growing rapidly, which causes a fair amount of stress and disconnection. Our world is changing rapidly. Our economy is upside down. Our income inequity is increasing. And I think all of that points to the fact that it is all the more important to create something like a community center that pulls people together, that provides the vehicle for them to connect. And that's how we keep our community strong, is by connecting with each other. We live in a very fractured time. And I think if Missoula is intentional and can pursue these types of goals, that's how we move forward and get to a better place. So I'm very much in favor of this. Seeing no other comment, we'll have a roll call vote on this item.
Okay, this is to approve the conceptual master plan for the current Center for Recreation and Creativity. And we start this round with Curly now.
Yes.
And Contos,
No.
Hess,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Nugent,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Vasika,
No.
West,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
and Basura.
Yes.
Would any of you like to change your vote? It's 10 ayes and 2 nays.
Thank you. That passes. Thank you, Donna and Mike, for all of your time on this. We have, let me see, no committee reports, no new business for communications from the mayor. I will just make a few brief comments. I had the pleasure on Friday and Saturday of going up to the Bison Range and then to Pablo for the events surrounding the return of the Bison Range to the tribe, the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes, and the management of the Bison Range. It was just a wonderful 2 days. I learned so much about the Bison Range, about the great importance of buffalo to the tribes. There was just wonderful speakers, wonderful messages, and really it got across to me how significant the return of the Bison Range is. So I just wanted to note that. There were also some really great speakers, Chairman McDonald, Senator Shane Morageau, Elder Johnny R. Lee, and then finally, Interior Secretary Deb Haaland spoke Saturday at the event. It was just wonderful hearing all of these people. I was incredibly impressed by Deb Haaland, especially. So I just wanted to note that. I think people haven't been up to the Bison Range. They really need a chance to get up there and check it out. And it was really heralded by the tribe as a great event moving forward. And it was literally 100 years in the making to get it returned to the tribe. So it is a significant event. All right, I will go to Ms. West for comments.
I don't have any.
Ms. Savage.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo your comments about attending the Bison Range Restoration Celebration. On Friday, at the invitation of the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes, I also attended the Bison Range Restoration Celebration in Moise. I was humbled to be invited and honored to attend. The celebration marked the return to the tribes of the Bison Range. It was a monumentous day and it was a long time coming. And I just wanted to read a quote from Interior Secretary Deb Haaland. This is in the Montana Free Press. And she said, the return of the Bison Range to these tribes is a triumph and a testament to what can happen when we collaboratively work together to restore balance to ecosystems that were injured by greed and disrespect. Thank you.
Mr. Hess.
Thanks. I also had the pleasure and the honor of attending the ceremony on Friday at the Bison Range and found it to be incredibly moving and meaningful. And I want to congratulate the tribes on their decades-long quest to transition the Bison Range to tribal management. I want to, and I'll just echo the comments of others so far. I want to specifically make a call out to the new Visitor Center Museum, which is incredible, just a really nice job there. And so next time you're in the area, definitely check that out. It's worth the stop alone. And then of course the Bison Range itself. So thanks.
Mr. Carlino.
I was also going to comment on that. I got to go celebrate with the Salish Kootenai tribe on Saturday. And I just think this is a really good example of land back that a lot of activists and indigenous people asked for and are advocating for. Just returning the management of the bison range back to the Salish Kootenai tribe is an example of land back, what people often ask for. And we all still get to enjoy the bison range, and it'll be under good hands in the future. So that was exciting to see land back in practice.
Great. Mr. Nugent.
Thank you. Thursday and Friday last week, I was able to attend with several of you the Missoula Economic Partnerships Big Sky Business Insight Summit. I know my colleague Ms. Cheryl's on the board, so I hope I'm not stealing your thunder here. And I just want to point out that they had 2 days full of conversations around two major issues impacting our community: housing and childcare, and how those are so intricately tied to the economic health of any community, including ours. And the presentations, I believe, are going to be available on the MEP website by the end of the week, I believe is what they said, but I don't know that for certain. So maybe if you're interested, I would check it out. It's the first time they did it in person, but I would encourage anybody who didn't attend to consider attending that and putting that on their calendar next year, because it was a tremendous community conversation.
Ms. Cheryl.
You did kind of steal my and I have no idea when they're putting it on the website. I'm not privy to that kind of information, but if they do, I'm glad to hear that they will be, though, because one of the presentations, it was the one Thursday morning, was Bryce Ward, who is an economist, and he was talking all about housing. It was fascinating. He speaks faster than my 16-year-old, but I was hanging on every single word because it was just so full of information. Anyone that is interested and worried about housing in this state should go and watch that. It was absolutely just fascinating. I said this last time too, that Friday was all about childcare, and along with our tax system, our system for childcare is absolutely broken. And I really hope that the legislature takes this up next session, because it is exacerbating all the other problems around housing and affordability as well. So I was just going to say again that I think it is really a sign of the times that an economic development organization has 2 full days that is dedicated to housing and childcare. And I'm actually really happy it's going to be on their website, because I didn't realize that. So go watch it.
Ms. Anderson. I'll pass. Mr. Contos.
Yes, been out of town for a while, so I missed the bison celebration up there. I'm sure that was a good one. I've actually been up there, and it's very impressive. I did want to mention something about the cleanup under the North Reserve Bridge. That's impressive. Been out of town for a while. I went up there Sunday, and it just looked great. And so I just really want to thank everybody that had anything to do with that. What an amazing effort. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Ms. Vasika.
Thank you. I wanted to thank everybody in the public that came tonight to offer their points of view on everything. I love it when public participates, so thank you for coming. I also wanted to wish everybody a safe Memorial Day weekend. And I just ask that you spend a couple of moments and remember why you have a 3-day weekend. It's to honor all of those who have lost their lives to protect our country. So just take a couple of moments and think about that while you're having a good time. Hopefully it'll be sunny. I didn't look at the weather, but be safe and have a good weekend.
Thank you. Ms. Jordan.
Thank you. I just wanted to say 2 quick things. One is I wanted to thank the county for all, John, you reminded me, for all the resources that they threw into getting the land under the Reserve Street Bridge fixed up. All our county commissioners were out there picking up trash. They offered their public works equipment, and a lot of county folk were out there picking it up, and it was a really great effort. And that was really nice to see. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is that there is a Bear Smart fundraiser at Imagination this Wednesday from 5:30 to 8, and proceeds from certain beverages will go to benefit the Bear Smart Action Fund, which was established by local residents in partnership with Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. The fund creates a source of revenue for projects that need immediate attention in order to keep bears and people safe in Missoula. So the idea of creating the fund emerged in the wake of a report of a female grizzly with her 3 cubs moving into the North Hills. This bear has already had some bad interaction with humans because humans have left stuff out for it to eat. And the funds from the Bear Smart Action Fund will go to help educate, and hopefully eventually we can find enough money for bins so that people could have bear safe bins. Anyway, this Wednesday, 5:30 to 8 o'clock for the bears at Imagination. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Becerra.
I will pass. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We have no miscellaneous communications, reports, or announcements. So we will stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your service.